Hey guys, what's going on? Banana156 here with another video. Remember, subscribe, like, comment, do all that stuff. And yeah, once again, thank you guys all for the recent support on the videos. I really appreciate it. So yeah, let's get right into it. So this is another video about Puss in Boots, and specifically about the character of Death, because Puss in Boots is my favorite movie ever, and I want to talk about it more. And we already did a video talking about Puss, so let's talk about Death. And specifically, I want to talk about what Death's motive was, because while I was rewatching this movie, the one key thing that came to my mind was, what was Death's true motive? Because it seems a little bit blurry, and some of his actions seem quite contradictory, and it just kind of threw me off a little bit, and it made me wonder what Death's true motive really was. So, yeah, that's what I want to talk about today. What was Death's true motive? And while watching this movie, I feel like there's only two real options here. I'm sure there's more if you really think about it, but while watching this movie, I came up with two key options for what Death's true motive was. So, let's talk about the first and most obvious of those motives. And that motive is that Death merely wanted to kill Puss because Puss had been disrespecting him for 8 lives, didn't value his own life, so let's just kill him because he won't value this 9th life anyway. And yeah, that's essentially what I thought the most obvious and first motive was that Puss's constant arrogance and egotisticalness made Death so angry that Death merely wanted to kill him during his ninth life, because Puss wouldn't value his 9th life anyway, and he was just going to end up losing it in a stupid way. So why not just get it out of the way now and have Death kill him? So yeah, that's what I think the first key motive was. And there is some evidence to support this. We can see that Death felt disrespected by Puss laughing in the face of Death, as he's so well known for. And we can see that in the scene of the Cave of the Lost Souls, where Death straight up tells Puss that he shouldn't laugh in the face of Death, and because he hasn't valued any of his 8 previous lives, and he's been an idiot and died in stupid ways, Death was just going to take this last life from him anyway, because Puss was going to waste it. I'm paraphrasing here, but that's essentially what Death says in the Cave of Lost Souls. That Puss isn't going to value his life anyway, he's going to waste it, so I'm going to kill him now and get it all over with. So that is one key piece of evidence that really does support this idea of the first motive. But there is another one that supports this key motive, and that is, if we look at the final battle between Puss and Death in the Wishing Star, we can see that Death fights Puss, and then Puss actually wins. But then after Puss beats Death, Death runs up to him and tries to scare him and try to make him feel the same fear that that Puss felt in that bar scene at the beginning of the movie. But Puss doesn't feel that. Puss stands his ground, stands tall, and is ready to continue protecting and fighting for his life, as well as the lives of the other people he cares about. And after this, Death is angry, and he says something very angrily in Spanish, and I did translate this, and it comes out to be, why do I always play with my food, or somewhere along that lines of playing with their food. And this line alone shows that Death is very angry at the fact that Puss has changed as a person. He has learned that he values his own life, or that he values life. He learned how to value life. He learned how to respect Death, and he isn't laughing in the face of Death anymore. And not only that, but he's willing to keep fighting for his life and keep fighting for those lives around him. And he's not going to take the easy way out anymore. As we see right before this scene, Puss gets rid of the opportunity to get more lives at the Wishing Star, and instead chooses to fight for the last life he has left. And that is one of the most noble things that Puss could ever do, especially considering how arrogant he was at the beginning of the movie. Puss at the beginning of the movie and in that bar scene would have never done something like that. And that's the person Death wanted to kill. But unfortunately, that person wasn't there at the Wishing Star. Puss in Boots was a completely different person by that time. So, when we look at this motive, it does seem like there's quite a bit of evidence to support it, but I do not believe that motive to be true. In fact, I believe there's a second motive that is much more likely, which is also very similar to this one, but is different in many key ways. And that motive is that Death did want to kill that arrogant little cat at the beginning of the movie that was just an egotistical asshole. But he didn't want to kill him in the more blunt way that is presented, that the writers want you to think, where he just wants to kill him. Instead, in fact, he wants to kill Puss by teaching him a lesson, by making him grow as a person and make him change from being that egotistical, arrogant asshole to being a noble person who respects and values life. And that's what I believe the second motive for Death is not that he wants to kill Puss's last life because he's going to waste it anyways, but because he wanted to teach Puss to value his life so he wasn't going to waste the last life he had left, so he could live his life to the fullest and protect it and fight for it, as well as fighting for other people around him, and learn that death is nothing to be laughed at. And the reason I think that this is the main motive of Death is because many of his actions throughout the movie support this idea that Death isn't trying to kill Puss, but he's merely trying to teach him a lesson. And Death goes about teaching him a lesson in the best way that he knows, which is by getting Puss to fear him and fear Death. And we can see that from the very beginning of the movie. Let's start with the bar scene, where Puss meets Death for the very first time. We can see that Death isn't trying to kill Puss at all. Like, he goes through his whole thing of being kind of scary and eerie, introducing himself in a weird way, and being scary and being a force, being a force that you feel. And I don't know how to describe that scene really, but you feel his presence, and it's really fearful. And we see that through the fight, Death isn't trying to land a blow that will kill Puss. He's merely trying to show Puss that Death is not something to be laughed at. You do not laugh at Death. You respect Death. And he does that through cutting Puss in Boots on the head. At that point, Puss has never been touched by a blade. But Death did it. Death touched him, and at that point it looked like Death was going to kill him. But he didn't. He let Puss run. He wanted that fear to sit with Puss. He wanted Puss to begin to fear and respect Death in the way that he should, so he could truly learn to value life. And we see that Death continues this theme of trying to seem ever present so Puss respects him and fears him throughout the entire movie. As we see, he's always there at the Jack Horner's castle when he looks at Puss as Puss is riding away in the carriage. When Puss is fighting Jack Horner and his men on the way to the Wishing Star, he's there. In the scene of the Cave of the Lost Souls, he's everywhere surrounding him as he's running away. Death is everywhere, and Puss should constantly be wary of Death's ever-looming presence. And this presence that Death builds up throughout the movie of always being there gets Puss to fear and respect him. Because of this, Puss learns that Death is nothing to be messed with, and he should not laugh in the face of Death anymore, and he learns to respect Death because of it. And we can see that in the final battle at the Wishing Star. But that is not the only lesson that Death teaches Puss. The other lesson that Death is trying to teach Puss is to value his own life so he doesn't waste it. And we can see that in the scene with the Cave of the Lost Souls, where Death, once again, isn't trying to kill Puss, as he's merely just trying to scare him, but he also in the Cave of the Lost Souls, it shows Puss all of his previous lives and how just stupid they were. How one got drunk and fell off a building, one ego lifted and lifted too much weight, one got hit by a bull on the run of the bulls. It shows Puss just how stupid and wasteful he was with his previous 8 lives. It shows Puss that he could have been so much more if he valued his life and if he didn't waste it in the way that he did. But he did. And then Death comes into the scene and helps further show Puss just how little he valued his life and what not valuing his life will get him. That's why he says what he says. You are going to waste your life anyway, so I'm just going to get it over with. Now that's obviously a paraphrase, But that's what Death was telling Puss. If you're going to treat this life like you treated the other 8, you're just going to waste it and die in die in an unsatisfactory way. And Death absolutely gets that point across, and because of this, Puss learns that life is not something to just throw away, and that life should be valued above everything. Because once you lose life, you truly do lose everything. So when we look at Death, we can see that the first obvious motive that comes to mind is that he merely wanted to kill Puss because he was an arrogant, stupid cat who didn't value his life anyway, so he's just going to waste it, so why not just get it over with, right? That's what it seems like in the beginning. But if we look a little bit deeper and look at Puss and Death's interactions and how Death acts around Puss and what he's trying to do, it seems much more that Death is trying to teach Puss a lesson rather than kill him. He's trying to change Puss so he will value his life more and not waste his last life. And Death is successful in that, if that was his goal. And I'm assuming that it is, because that just is what seems most likely to me throughout his action, because of his actions throughout the entire movie. So that's what I think Death set out to do. To teach Puss how to respect death rather than laugh in the face of it. And also teach Puss to learn to value life and protect and fight for it, not just for himself, but for his friends, because life truly is the most valuable thing out there. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I love Puss in Boots. I love talking about Puss in Boots. That's why I made this video. I want to talk about Puss in Boots more. And Death is absolutely my favorite character. He's so cool. He's just awesome. I love him. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I love Puss in Boots. If you want more Puss in Boots videos, support this video, like, comment, subscribe, do all that so I know to make more for you guys. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Remember, subscribe, like, comment, do all that stuff if you enjoyed it. And yeah, I'll see you guys next week.